If you're enjoying the Health Geeks Book Club podcast, we'd appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, leave a like, rating, or review, whichever your preferred podcatcher platform allows.
This episode is sponsored by Well Balanced Nutrition and 360 Health.
Welcome to the Health Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor. Welcome back to part 2 of the Pain into Love episode with Michael Roels.
Can I go back to your physical injury? Because it seems to me, I thought I read in there that you did have some bulging discs in several of your vertebrae.
I was 21 years old. I was
athletic.
athletic.
They didn't catch that.
Good.
In how did that become revealed?
The reason they didn't catch it is because when I left the hospital that day, I could
great.
bend down and touch my toes. I mean, I could do physical stuff. I lived in a 3rd-story apartment. I left there that day, carried groceries. I could do whatever. Now, the pain felt like knives were in my body and they wouldn't leave. But here at the beginning, I'm a positive person. I'm strong. We're going to get through this. So at 3 months, they said when I left, at 3 months, you'll feel better. It's just soft tissue damage. That's muscle damage from the absorption of all that.
Is that when you got rechecked after 3 months?
Yeah, I went back at 3 months and I said, something's wrong with my body.
And
Something's
that's when
not
they found
right.
it.
And that's when he said, let's do the MRI, herniated
What
all
did they
my
offer
lumbar
you?
discs.
What did they offer you?
Muscle relaxer and the Vicodin.
Was surgery an option?
No, thank God. It could have been the neurosurgeon that I saw said, look, here's the thing. We go to surgery, we can clip all those discs right there. Discs, when they're traumatized, they naturally shrink. And just FYI to every human being, if you're a human and there's gravity pushing down where you live, like we all, our discs degenerate over time. So he said, what's going to happen is those discs are going to shrink back up more, and then you might even have to get rods in your back. So what we're going to do is let you do it naturally. We're not going to do surgery. It's going to take longer. It's going to take a while for you to heal. But, you know, when you're 50 years old, you're not going to be. They said if I did the surgery at 35, you're going to be getting rods in your back. So if you put it off, it'll be 50 when you're getting rods in your back. So I thought, well, I'm grateful for that. And I am grateful to this day that they weren't surgery happy because I was uneducated about the body. And if they would have said, hey, this is really going to help, this is what we see, I would have trusted that because I'd had no other reason not to. So I was really grateful that they didn't do that. And just immediately physical therapy, medicines. That was the immediate reaction to the MRI.
So you tried physical therapy, massage, chiropractor,
shots, cortisone shots, muscle relaxers, Vicodin, hot cold packs, acupuncture. At the time, anything that was offered, TENS machine, they were great. And said, insurance pay for that. You can take this home and use that. And TENS machine's a very vibrating machine, and your nervous system when you're in pain is really jacked up. So anything that's going to have a fast movement with you is really only going to stimulate your nervous system more and not really do a whole lot to relax something. Because there again, you don't relax muscles right here. If you cut the spinal cord, there is no communication between the muscle and brain, which means you can't feel and you can't move. So when we find these spots where people don't hurt, that we know is causing them to hurt, it's their brain telling them that muscle is tight. And when we're finished with it, we can push really good into that muscle and they go, hey, that's not tender anymore. And that's when I know the muscles on the other side are going to feel great.
Interesting.
I had some notes in here, and you mentioned it about neuromuscular therapy. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what is that modality? Because I think many people are familiar with physical therapy. But
NMT, straight neuromuscular therapy, is typically, have you heard of Rolfing before?
No.
Tell us about that.
Rolfing
I've heard of it, but
is similar in the way that old school, when I was trained, you use more pressure, don't leave anything in doubt. So old school NMT is great because they do put you in the right areas to work. Hey, if this person's got pain here, you need to look at the whole big picture of the body. But it's more of an unpleasant experience in the way that it can be really uncomfortable. I feel like I did that. I just took down to understanding if you get me too uncomfortable, my nervous system's too stimulated. So it's going to be hard to relax something in the brain with that. So NMT...
And you're stressing yourself too, right? So then you're going to kick out the stress,
absolutely.
hormones.
And so to retrain something in the brain to say, hey, no, let the communication to that muscle calm down and be a normal function. Because if you have an injury, if you have things that you've done over and over again, all that stuff, it goes in here. I mean, we go to open a door. If watch yourself today, you'll open a door the exact same way every single time. That's muscle memory. Muscles do not care what we do every day, but they do want to do the same thing over and over again. So that's why if this weekend I'm moving and I go move a bunch of stuff and I don't normally do that, I'm probably going to hurt for like 5 days after and be sore. It's because my muscles were like, we're not used to doing that. So they that's how they act upon wanting to change, is they'll have soreness and some discomfort. So NMT is great for it's using your hands, manual manipulation. And it's in strategic places that affect how the body functions, looking at different areas. Roels Method takes into the account 3 to 5 pain levels, what we work with. And usually the people say that's a comfortable tenderness and a tenderness that I like to feel. It feels like I need to feel that. But example, just somebody's got the back pain. We go to their quad muscles, lateral quad, and we'll barely touch that muscle. And they'll say, wow, that's tender. That's at 3 to 5. I could go to their back and push in their back muscles real hard where they have pain. And they'll say, God, it kind of feels good. You're pushing on the pain. So another light bulb went off and I was like, God, we go to these silent muscles to them because they don't feel anything here until you barely touch it. And they go, wow, I had no idea that was tender right there. So that's the retraining of the neuromuscular system. It's all connected. And like I said, you cut that cord, there's no communication, which means I can't feel and I can't move muscles. So that tells me when we apply a pressure that is a 3 to 5 to someone, I'll hold it there and I'll say, take 3 humongous deep breaths. And I hold that stimulus the same. After 3 breaths, they say, wow, that's just pressure now. I know we changed in your brain because I didn't change a stimulus and your interpretation of that changed. Well, that happens in the brain, not in a muscle. So that's the retraining that we do in specific areas depending on injuries or whatnot. And that's what takes the pressure off of the areas that we feel pain. In 20 years, I have not met one person in pain that their problem was right where the pain was. Now, if you break a bone, you tear a ligament, something like that, you're going to feel pain in that injured area. But musculoskeletal-wise, not one person have I worked on a muscle where they feel pain and they felt better. It's always in another area that's putting pressure where they have pain. So I found that, wow, all those therapies, all they did was micro-focus even where I would say I had pain. Like, let's just right where you say that. So that's probably why I didn't get any better with those therapies. But they kept a patient for 3 years.
Is NMT the same as body work? Or what is the definition of body work?
Body work I believe body work is a very broad term that's used for manual manipulation. So typically a traditional massage therapist does relaxation massage. They're probably not going to refer to what they do as body work. But once people start getting to doing deep tissue and structural things, they'll sometimes refer to it as body work.
I see.
Well, you mentioned Reiki.
Reiki, yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about that modality?
Yeah, and Reiki is what I tell people, there's healing energy all around us. And Reiki is a modality that you can get trained in that teaches you their techniques in connecting to that energy. And most of the time, people that are Reiki practitioners do not touch a person. They'll usually just have their hands kind of hovering over different areas. And yeah, it's healing energy. So Reiki is an also
energy modality.
Yes, and I think more sensitive people.
So it's not a physical modality; it's an energy.
Absolutely, tapping into that energy.
Yeah.
And speaking of that energy, you mentioned in your training that you would pick up the energy from someone you were giving a massage to.
Yes.
Like you did a training and then later, or a massage, and then later that day you felt this intense anger.
That was in massage school.
Okay.
Next day I come into class, and that's when the instructor said something. They said, we just wanted to mention to you guys there's something called transference.
Yes.
So if you are giving somebody a massage and then later you have all these different emotions, like, don't worry about it. It's just you probably picked something up. Talk therapist will tell you typically 20 hours a week is what they do. And it's because it's not hard work to listen to people, but the transference that they get is intense. So they have a lot of self-care, and they do that. Same with massage, except you're touching people. So you are fully in that energy prism. So
Oh,
I
like
did,
that
and
word,
so
energy prism. I like that.
that day I was in a liberation that I talked about in the book after I got out of pain that I really can't describe into words. But life was amazing. Everything was amazing. So I leave after that day, and I got to go to work that night. But on the way home, I'm driving down I-77, and I'm just like, why am I so pissed right now? That car just moved over in my lane. Why do I want to run them over? Why do I have these feelings?
Road
I'm
rage.
supposed to be happy right now. So the next day we come in, teachers mentioned that. And then I went to the female that I had worked on the day before, and she looked at me and she's like, did you get that yesterday? I was like, yeah. She's like, I'm so sorry. I was really having a bad day. And she's like, but you worked on me, and I
didn't have it
felt
anymore.
wonderful the
I gave
rest
it to
of the
you.
day. And I was like, that's what that was. And I wasn't upset. And it was, to me, just my age being young, I was felt suppressed over those 3 years. I did not go out. I did not have fun. I went to doctors, and that's what the life was. So I was, at 24, kind of where I was at 21. And hey, I want to experience so much I can in life, So I did feel that. And they teach you in school, you can create kind of like a mental boundary that you put around you. And honestly, at first, I didn't even want that. I just thought this is so interesting. And I understood that's what it was. So I kind of went into that energy world because my pain threw me into that energy world. So I got more educated about all these different energies and metaphysics and all that stuff during that time. So yeah, by the time I was out of school, though, very rarely would I feel something. And now I don't know if it's something I have
protection.
full
You got some
protecting me.
aura
but
already,
yeah. So I don't pick that up from people anymore.
What about anger and fear? Because you talk about turning pain into love, and you were kind of angry at some points about the wreck, and I'm sure I would venture the number of people that live in pain is huge.
And that anger has to accompany that pain.
Probably so.
A lot.
And I don't have the stats on that, but I'm guessing that it's prevalent.
And something that happens that makes you angry, then you have to think, when in my life before was I really angry? So a lot of things that came out after that accident, a lot of emotions, I ended up identifying as stuff different that didn't have to do with the accident.
Right.
But that people at that witnessed the accident on 911 said that it sounded like a bomb going off when the two cars collided. So that, I feel like I tell people, I feel like that shook everything inside of me. So then it just made things want to start coming out. And so the therapist that I saw, Dr. Roels, was wonderful and was did not say, hey, Michael, you're going to be sharing a lot of different emotions with me over these next couple of years. She did not say that. But I know that she knew that and just took it one session. Where is he today? Let's just let him get out what it is today. So definitely those emotions I feel like were shook out of me. The anger, definitely after the accident, the anger that I saw that really was deserved was towards an insurance company. I mean, it was really nightmarish experience.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, you have to read the book to read that, but it is a nightmarish story on that part of it.
And you were diagnosed with PTSD.
Yes.
And you mentioned that I found it, I appreciated just kind of the moment in the book where you were like, when people have PTSD, it's really hard, and in pain, it's really hard to be around people, even though that's probably what you need the most. But pain is so strong that that's the only thing on your mind. And it's really hard to connect with other people. And I just felt that in my soul for all the people experiencing that need community and need connection. And at the same time, it's so hard.
It's a weird dichotomy to me.
It is.
Here's why people in chronic pain don't necessarily like being around a lot of people, because they're experiencing the pain. Y'all are going out to the mall to go shopping and you're having a great time. You and your world is great. That person does not want to tell you how bad they're hurting, because who wants to hear that? And now you're going to start feeling bad for me, right? I just want to go out to the mall and go shopping with you and have a good time.
But I can't.
So that person will put themselves through that. And then sometimes, because this is an experience, chronic pain, if you haven't been in it, you're not going to understand it. And a lot of experiences are like, if you've never experienced, you can't fully understand. So someone that's not been in chronic pain sometimes think, well, you just got to be tougher. Sometimes if you've never been in it and somebody's sharing that with you, it's going to make you feel a little down. Talk about transference. Get somebody in chronic pain suffering that much, you'll feel that. So then the person in chronic pain goes, well, I can't really talk about it because they don't understand it. It's not going to, and then it's going to make them feel bad for me. I don't want them to feel bad. I'm feeling bad for all of us right now, you know? So that's part of it, is that you don't want to be around people for that reason.
Right.
You're going to be a drag. You're not going to be fun. And if you were a fun person before, now
That's
you're
hard
just
to
like,
deal
I
with.
can't do that. So then you think, well, support groups, right? Support groups with people around me that are in pain. That would be a great idea. But then when you're in pain, you realize, number one, we probably, because we go to all these therapies and we hurt driving, probably don't want to make another trip and go sit in one of those hard plastic chairs somewhere to sit all and talk about the pain we're in. And on top of it, all we're doing is commiserating about our pain. We're reinforcing this. So that's why we isolate. And that's why there's not a whole lot of places that people go except to where they go get therapy. And that's where they can kind of run into other people that are going through pain. But those people just want to go and be out of pain. So to focus on pain is not very glamorous and it's not fun. And I will tell you, being in chronic pain at one time, it's not going to make you feel better to hear other people talk about them being in chronic pain. It's depressing.
The pain can be physical pain. The etiology or the cause of the pain can be so different. You know, I mean, it can be an emotional, it can be a physical injury, or who knows. And a chemical imbalance, and it's irritating the nerve fibers. I mean, there are all sorts of fibromyalgia.
That's a great thing for fibromyalgia.
Yeah.
Fibromyalgia still to this day has no exact definition. It's a lot of symptoms, and when they can't figure out why that's happening, they'll put you in that category. Although I haven't, again, in my whole professional career, including myself, I've not met one person that's been diagnosed with fibromyalgia that does not have an extreme amount of stress. Extreme amount of stress in their life in some way. For me, I believe pain pills had to do something, and then I believe being young and not having support around me to help me live, and then an insurance company that you've been in this accident, it's not paying you wages that you work. There's just so much stress.
And then you have
there
the stress of that. How do I
your
make it
nervous
from day to
system
day?
is in a constant fight or flight. There's a tiger around every corner. And when you do that, that's why people in chronic pain at the end of the day, they didn't do anything. They are exhausted from being conscious in that pain. Because when you're in chronic pain, you are not daydreaming about anything. You are in that 24/7. And it's draining.
Yes.
And that's why we don't want to go be around people, because how fun does that sound,
So
Right.
how do we help move the person in pain to a resolution? What is it that us health geeks, promote?
Decision. It's a decision. I've thought about another book coming, and I think that it would have something to do with being a decision, because at the time that I started to get better was when I was released from those doctors. So I knew that I had nothing else to lose at that point. So I'm going to make a decision that I am going to do everything that I possibly can to be better. So the only way I thought was, well, be better. Like, do the things that you do if you were better. The pain might not go away, and then we'll address that when we get there.
Did you think happy thoughts? Did you do affirmations? Because I think you mentioned affirmations.
Affirmations started writing on just taking a computer piece of paper and writing love or acceptance or all these things. That was before I was even released by doctors, and that's Lana Van Zandt. Her book was the first book that I read when I realized I was on a spiritual journey, which was probably 5-6 months into the pain, and she helped open my mind to people going through trauma, and really that book was so important because it gave me hope. She gave me hope.
So handing somebody your book might be something we could do.
Yeah, that's why I wrote it, was to be helpful to individuals going through the pain. But I believe that we all, as similar as the healing experience is, it's your own experience. So I share mine in hopes that people will relate to those things that I learned to heal myself, because I believe all the emotional stuff, I had to do that first. And the emotional pain was worse than the physical pain ever was. And that was the trauma stuff being brought. PTSD is not a car accident that happened, now you have PTSD. It's a trauma happening that brings out trauma in your earlier life. That's PTSD. So that's what all vibrated up I don't know how much I ever dealt with a car pulling out in front of us. It was all an accident. But I dealt with all the emotional trauma that I had up to that point over that 3 years. I believe that facilitated me to be able to make the decision, you're going to get better. Like, you're going to do this. Like, you're going to get your butt. You're not waiting for anybody to tell you anything. You just do it.
I don't know if you listened to a podcast we did recently on epigenetics, but there is a school of thought that's saying that positive intention and positive thought and belief that you will get better actually works at a cellular level on letting the repair mechanisms occur in your body at a cellular level, which I think is really fascinating.
Yeah, your mind's got to be in the right place to heal. Your mind has to be in the right place to heal. If your mind is not in the right place, really, your spiritual life, and I don't think anybody has to believe in anything necessarily. It's what they want to believe in. But I believe those are essential in a healing experience. So you can't leave one out and just go, I'm physically going to deal with this injury or this problem, or I'm just only going to deal with it mentally, or I'm only just going to sit there and pray about it. Like, I don't think one of those by themselves does it, but I believe all three of them together is essential to heal.
Yeah, I think your story is really in line with the last book, is The Genie in Your Genes, where they talk about beliefs, thoughts, attitudes, expectations are all super important for healing, and how stress is usually underlying so many illnesses and pain that people experience. So it's very interesting to read that book and then read your book and have this conversation, because it just kind of all mends together.
Right. And Mike, we really appreciate
I answered them both.
we really appreciate the work you do in our community.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful business that you have, and caring for all of us. Love your book. We recommend it. We hope that we can get this into people's hands that need it. Where would they find it?
Amazon.
There we go.
Best place
And
to
where
find
would they
it.
find you?
They can find me online at
And your team.
essentialbalanceDBodywork.com, Emily and I, and then our business that we own together in Clemens, Essential Balanced Bodywork.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for
Yes.
taking
Thank you
time out of
guys
your
for
busy day,
having
because
me.
we know you've got people to go take care of. I'm Eleanor Russell at 360 Health, making healthy happen, and hoping that the education that we provide helps people find their way through this crazy thing we call life. Check my website, 360health4u.com.
And I am Kristen Norton, one of the registered dietitians at wellbalancednutrition.com. And if you're listening to this near the new year, do not go on another diet. Instead, visit us at wellbalancednutrition.com.
Preach it, sister.
And we'll help you adopt healthy habits that you can live with for life. Thanks so much.
The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.